All right. Well, let's get started. I don't want to keep anyone waiting any longer. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa Covens, and I am the Senior Vice President of the Public Affairs and Communications team here in Central Canada. So welcome to our second iteration of Cracking the Newcomer Code research. To give you a bit of background, this ongoing study was born out of an observation that our research teams had about a year ago. Several of our clients were starting to ask for oversamples of newcomers on general population surveys. This morphed into requests for custom research that solely tapped into this segment in Canada. From there, we realized that the newcomer segment was becoming more and more important for organizations, corporations, government, so we embarked on this syndicated research series. So in the spring of 2024, we completed our first iteration, which looked broadly at the challenges newcomers face and the support they require for the settlement experience. We dug a little deeper into personal finances, banking, and insurance preferences. The results of this study are still relevant, and if you're interested in learning more on these topics, please reach out to your Leger representative or our sales team. Now for the second version. This time around, we switched topics and dug deeper on the retail sector. To take us through the results, I have with me two colleagues. Jasmine Harnasia is a research director on our public affairs and communications team here in Central Canada. Jasmine has a great perspective on this research, being a newcomer to Canada herself, and quite recently, in 2019. I also have our colleague Luc Dumont here with me today. Luc is the Senior Vice President of the Consumer Insights team in Central Canada as well. His team has a focus on retail, and he will be taking us through the grocery section today and adding his knowledge and experience to the data.
Hello.
So before diving into our findings, let's consider why newcomers deserve our attention and why cracking the newcomer code is essential. Newcomers arrive in Canada for diverse reasons: seeking economic opportunities, education, family, or asylum. Far from being a uniform group, newcomers form a vibrant mosaic of experiences and perspectives that enrich Canada's society and economy. Their journeys are unique, contributing to Canada's growth and evolution in meaningful ways. Understanding this diversity isn't just an opportunity, it's a necessity for making informed decisions. So now I'll hand it over to Jasmine to take us through the importance of newcomers to Canada's key sectors.
Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone. Newcomers aren't just part of our Canadian society. They are key drivers of progress. They bring fresh ideas and innovative solutions, advancing fields such as scientific research, technology, medical care, and creativity. Nearly a third of Canadian business owners are immigrants. 37% of our physicians were born abroad, and 24% of our sports coaches came from abroad as well. Their innovation and resilience continue to enrich and strengthen Canada in countless ways. Why does understanding newcomers matter? Immigration isn't a side note. It is central to Canada's future. In 2021, immigrants made up nearly a quarter of Canada's population. With declining birth rates, newcomers fill crucial workforce roles, ensuring continued economic growth. Whether in policy, branding, or infrastructure, it is essential to consider this dynamic and growing demographic.
So we shared the same slide at our last webinar. However, the numbers looked different. It is probably not news to anyone who would have been interested in joining this particular webinar today that the government recently reduced its immigration targets to address concerns about housing and healthcare infrastructure.
Lisa, this adjustment was aimed at balancing population growth with infrastructure capacity. However, it raises an important question. While newcomers are critical to countering declining birth rates and driving economic progress, are we doing enough to support their integration and ensure that they have the resources to succeed? After all, immigration is vital to Canada's growth. And what do Canadians feel of these changes? After all, immigration impacts everyone, influences resources and infrastructure. So we asked general population, what do they think of this revised 2025-27 plan? 3 in 5 Canadians believe that immigration targets are too high, a view that has remained unchanged even after recent reductions. This shows concerns about resource strains and the need to balance these challenges while maintaining support for immigration. When we ask specifically about the opinion on this change to the targets, 59% of Canadians felt that it was a positive change.
So now you might feel that newcomers to Canada have a completely opposite viewpoint when asked the same question, but that's not exactly the case. As many as 45% of newcomers say that Canada will admit too many immigrants. 33% say it'll admit the right number of immigrants, and 7% say Canada will not admit enough immigrants. A slightly higher number of newcomers said they didn't know what the right answer is at 15%. But when we dig deeper and look at newcomers that have been in Canada longer, so 6 to 10 years versus the 1 to 5, their opinions come even closer to mirroring those of the general population in Canada.
Integration isn't without its challenges. As newcomers strive to become part of Canadian society, their experiences shape how they view Canadian values and Canadian society. However, the reality is not entirely ideal. When we asked how do they view the level of racism in Canada, 2 in 5 newcomers feel that Canadians are racist, a perception that actually grows stronger over time. 36% of newcomers who are in Canada for less than 5 years say Canadians are racist, as compared to 45% of those who are in Canada for longer.
So interestingly, again, a portion of the general population in Canada also shares similar views when we posed this question. 47% said they believe Canadians are racist. Overall, while newcomers don't feel that society is actively against them, they also don't see it as fully welcoming either.
Now, with this context, we also need to consider the unique demographic makeup to effectively connect with them. Newcomers are different from general population. One key distinction is age. Most newcomers are aged under 55, making them significantly younger than broader Canadian population. This younger profile has important implications for policies and for retail services, as younger immigrants often have different needs and face unique challenges compared to older Canadians.
So let's briefly revisit a few insights from our spring study. We explored newcomers' settlement and economic journeys, their financial relationships, and more. These insights continue to shape our understanding and build a clearer picture of newcomers' challenges and opportunities. So this stat made front page news when we released our first iteration of the study, and it was the #1 finding the media took note of. It is also one of the first things newcomers notice when they arrive. Canada is more expensive than they anticipated, with half finding it significantly more costly than expected. This gap between expectations and reality often leaves newcomers unprepared for the financial challenges, making their adjustment a little more difficult.
Totally agree with this finding, Lisa. This was the first thing I noticed when I came to Canada 5 years ago. Now, becoming financially independent is a journey. It takes, on average, 20 months for newcomers to become financially independent. That is, be able to cover all their living expenses, such as housing, food, healthcare, and transportation, without any financial assistance from external sources. This timeline highlights the resilience they require for this journey and the challenges they face as they adapt to their new environment.
So with this backdrop, we present our key highlights of Cracking the Newcomer Code 2.0. Our comprehensive research methodology involved a detailed survey of about 2,100 recent immigrants who arrived in the past 10 years, providing a robust foundation for our insights. Like our first iteration, our data was collected solely through our in-house LEO panel, which allows us to target subpopulations such as this one. I'll hand it over to Jasmine to take us through some of the challenges newcomers are currently facing.
Financial pressure is a recurring challenge. We asked newcomers how they would describe their household's finances today. 51% of newcomers describe their household situation, the financial situation as poor, compared to just a third of general Canadian population when we ask the same question to Canadians. Our spring research revealed that 7 in 10 newcomers came to Canada for economic reasons, including a better standard of living for them. So many face significant financial strain, struggling to achieve the stability that they hoped. And about 6 in 10 newcomers find themselves walking a financial tightrope, earning just enough or sometimes even less to cover their expenses. Just under a quarter newcomers say their income is more than their expenses. This precarious situation leaves about half of newcomers at least occasionally worrying about job security within their household or safety of their savings. These financial pressures add to the challenges of achieving the economic stability they came to Canada seeking. And housing is a key part of settlement, yet it remains challenging as rent and mortgage costs continue to rise. In past 2 years, 72% of renting newcomers saw their rent increase and 40% of homeowners faced higher mortgage payments.
So, from our economic confidence survey in July of 2024, we also found that 36% of the general population in Canada has also seen their mortgage increase, and 70% of renters have seen that increase. So, how will newcomers meet these new financial strains?
Reducing spending on other things is the number one change newcomers have made to offset the increase in rent and mortgage. Saving also took a hit, with newcomers reporting that they have saved less than they intended or even withdrew funds from the money they had saved. I'm sure you're all familiar with the ongoing housing affordability crisis, but amid widespread crisis, newcomers also face unique challenges. Over 2 in 5 say their newcomer status makes it harder to rent the apartment or secure a bank loan. These hurdles are more pronounced in their first 5 years in Canada, with half facing the difficulties renting an apartment or securing a loan due to their immigrant status. And job market challenges add to the housing and financial pressures that newcomers face. Finding meaningful employment is tough, with 60% struggling to secure jobs and 55% unable to secure comparable salaries to their role.
So, to add further context to this, according to the StatsCan Labor Force Survey from 2019, newcomers earned on average about 20% less than their Canadian born counterparts when comparing their weekly earnings. Despite bringing valuable skills and experience, these challenges make achieving their economic goals more difficult. And now, shifting from their financial realities, let's explore newcomers' unique grocery shopping behaviors. Their behaviors and preferences provide valuable insights, and understanding them is key to aligning strategies with this dynamic demographic. I'm now going to hand it over to my colleague Luc Dumont to take us through the grocery retail section.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you both. Really fascinating stuff so far. So given all of the stuff that we've been talking about, in particular, the economic realities and challenges that all of us face, and in particular newcomers, it's really not surprising that we see, where newcomers gravitate to when thinking of grocery shopping. So we asked which of the following retailers were their favorite or their preferred retailer to shop at, and 24% say Walmart, 20% say Costco, and 12% No Frills. Now that's going to be different depending on where people come from. So for example, South Asians often prefer Walmart and No Frills. Filipinos tend to favor Real Canadian Superstore, and Middle Easterners tend to choose Costco. But overall, 92%, most of newcomers are satisfied with the availability of grocery products that meet their needs and preferences, which of course are going to be different from the general population. We also asked a couple of questions around their actual preferred retailer, whether they felt that their preferred retailer offered a good variety of multicultural products, and 74% said they agreed with that. And even more important than that, we asked if they felt that their preferred retailer understood the needs of new Canadians, and 63% said that they did agree. So grocery retailers are doing a good job, I think, of connecting with newcomers. Now, how do newcomers shop for their groceries? Primarily in store. We can see that here. 82% say that they shop in store and only 18% shopping online. Of course, there will be differences by age. There always are with these types of questions. Younger newcomers, 18 to 34, are slightly more likely to shop online, about 22%. And for 55 and older, grocery shopping remains primarily an in-store activity. So it means that grocery retailers have to provide a very good, an excellent, actually, in-store experience as well as an engaging digital experience.
So keep these numbers in mind. They shift significantly when looking at the personal care and beauty care retailers in our next section.
Yeah. So when we ask about most important factors, price usually comes up right up on top. What stood out for us here was that, apart from the fact that more than half of the people we spoke to selected price, discount promotions, location, and product quality as most important factors, it's interesting that a quarter of the people that we spoke to said that the availability of products from their country of origin was something that was important to them, right? So obviously, that means it's really important for retailers to pay attention to this statistic.
That's really interesting. Let me add another detail about beauty shopping behavior here. Availability of products from country of origin is important in grocery for a quarter of newcomers, but that is not the case with beauty or personal care. Only about 9% newcomers actually agree with this sentiment for beauty. Instead, what is important in beauty for the newcomers is the availability of product for their skin type. 29% of newcomers said that it is an important factor when they choose their beauty or personal care retailer.
So we asked newcomers how grocery retailers could attract them, right? And here's what we heard. We saw that loyalty programs come out on top. Really appealed to newcomers just as much as they do to the general population. So over half of the people we spoke to said that they would be attracted by a store offering a loyalty program. Keep in mind, loyalty programs are a way for retailers to make people feel like they're being given back to. So it ties into the whole, discount, getting more bang for your buck concept. But same number of people said that they want to see multicultural products, right, at the retailer. So how are retailers doing in this area? 3/4 of newcomers say their preferred store offers a good variety of multicultural products, but only half feel that the staff is knowledgeable about these products. So you're on the right track. When you're a retailer, you've got the products, but you really have to have a workforce that can talk about them and advise people and provide recommendations. So there's room to enhance that experience. When it comes to grocery, again, offering multicultural products are important. I've mentioned that already. 53% say that would attract them as a newcomer, but as Jasmine will show us later, not so important for beauty retailers for different reasons. So cultural connections remain pretty important for newcomers, even in the grocery aisle, right? We've got 61% of the people we spoke to here saying that their cultural background influences their purchasing decisions. So it's important to remember that newcomers are, it's also important to remember that newcomers are not a homogenous group. Different cultural backgrounds should be considered when shaping retailer communication strategies. So think about the neighborhoods that your stores are in. It may be completely different from one neighborhood to the other, even though you're the same retailer, the same banner. And we also see that their cultural background, I guess, plays a bigger role than we expected. So we've got 40% of newcomers, particularly visible minorities, actively seeking grocery stores tailored to new Canadians. So they're looking for that specific experience. And in in addition to that, about 3 in 10 value having staff from their own community in the store. But it's important to know that just over half feel that the staff at their chosen stores provide culturally sensitive service. Again, an area where retailers can improve on that experience, given that it's something important and perhaps not delivering on at the moment. And grocery stores play a key role in shaping newcomers' experience and connecting people to their cultural roots. Right, really enhances how they view the store and in turn their loyalty to that retailer for sure. Here we've got an impressive 92% of our respondents saying that they feel positive when they find products from their home country. This is especially true of younger newcomers and those from visible minority groups.
I actually totally agree with this finding, Luke. And I have seen many of my newcomer friends who get excited when they find something from their home country in the stores here. Also to add, this number was similar when we were digging the results into beauty and personal care retailers. It's about 89%.
Yeah, but we could say, however, that there's still room to grow, especially in terms of product offerings. But 44% of newcomers struggle to find items that met their cultural or dietary needs, and that includes food and spices and sauces and things of that nature. Younger Canadians and 18 to 34 and visible minorities, particularly South Asians, face the most difficulty in finding these products. So again, room to improve there. And I will now hand it over back to Jasmine, who will take you through our beauty section, which has both similarities, but some very key differences and interesting differences to the grocery category.
Thank you, Luke. Some really interesting stats there. So now when we asked newcomers what their preferred retailer is for personal and beauty care, Shoppers Drug Mart comes out on top with 26%. When we add in their specific beauty boutique, Shoppers is capturing more than 1/3 of this share actually. Sephora, grocery stores, and Amazon are the other alternatives when shopping in this category. When choosing a personal care or beauty retailer, what's important for newcomers is price. Price carries the most weight, followed by product quality and discounts and promotions. Of note for retailers, demographically, ethnic background has some impact on the choice of personal care or beauty retailer. Those of South Asian, Filipino, and Black ethnicity place more emphasis on availability of product for their skin type, as I mentioned earlier as well. About at least 4 in 10 kind of decide on the basis of that what their chosen retailer is going to be. Now, this is a lot different than grocery, where we saw 82% preferring to shop in-store exclusively. But for beauty and personal care, just 55% is exclusively in-store and 44% prefer shopping online, at least occasionally. This highlights the enhanced connection newcomers have with grocery retailers and the larger impact they can have on integrating into society. As many as 38% of newcomers say that they have faced challenges finding beauty or personal care products that meet their cultural preferences. This represents an opportunity for beauty retailers. Skincare is actually the #1 product that's cited as being the challenge for these folks. Keep in mind that 46% say it is challenging to find beauty products that match their skin tone. And this portion is even higher when we talk about visible minority, it reaches 50%. And 45% also say that it is challenging to find beauty products that meet their unique needs. Again, this number is higher among visible minorities. That's at 49%. So how do we access the newcomer market? I'm going to hand it back to Lisa to take us through a few more stats.
Thank you, Jasmine. So, looking at this stat, over half agree that advertising and promotions targeted at newcomers influence their shopping decisions. And with so many of our team members looking at this data, I've had many of them send me ads that they've seen specifically targeted at newcomers over the past couple weeks because it's topical for all of us. And now we're noticing the ads ourselves as well. So, we're going to see on the next slide where newcomers are typically going to find information about new products or new retailers. So not surprising, social media is the #1 way newcomers find out about any new products or new stores. And this is even higher among women at 60%, and those in that newer to Canada bucket of the less than 5 years having arrived in Canada. Rounding out some other methods, the other top methods include flyers, word of mouth, ads, and online reviews. So, like all Canadians, newcomers have embraced loyalty reward programs, with nearly all belonging to at least one loyalty program. So, I dug around to look into loyalty program uptake in a few key countries where Canada has some immigrants coming from. And the loyalty program uptake in those countries was much lower than what we are seeing here. So really, that does show that that newcomers are coming to Canada and getting into the loyalty reward spirit that Canadians so embrace. Additionally, more than half of newcomers say that a loyalty program is a method for attracting them. We saw that earlier in the presentation. And nearly 3/4 of newcomers say that they would be likely to switch retailers for a better loyalty rewards. So retailers definitely need to pay attention to this statistic if they want to hang on to existing customers or if they want to forge ahead to gain new ground in this market. This switching behavior is even more pronounced in the beauty and personal care retail space at 76%. So don't underestimate newcomer interest in attraction for reward programs. Yeah, circling back to stats we presented earlier, thinking about how we can attract newcomers in the first place, that was the #1 answer. So have a loyalty program, make it a great one, and you'll attract not only all Canadians, but especially newcomers. So our last section for today, before questions, digs a little deeper into integrating into Canadian society. And I'm going to hand it back to Luke to talk about the key role retailers play in that integration.
So for me, in terms of the retail landscape in regards to newcomers, this is one of the most important findings. We've mentioned previously that immigration is really important to our country's success. And with our reduced targets, I guess over the next few years, it becomes even more important for newcomers to feel welcomed and to have the sense that they're going to be part of this society for the long term. And as we've already seen with a number of statistics, retailers, we feel, have a role to play in this, right? Many newcomers feel that retailers do play a role themselves in helping them understand and adapt to Canadian culture. So we're seeing here that, in terms of the grocery space, 65% of the people we spoke to said that grocery retailers play a role in that. So, you have to leverage that when you're engaging with this population. And that's not surprising. It's a category where, things are done in person primarily, as we saw before in terms of online versus in store. And there's also the frequency. It's something that you do quite a lot of throughout the year at regular intervals. So think about that as well. Jasmine will take us through another section about integrating into the community.
Thank you, Luke. So as we mentioned, integration is key. We want you to understand the newcomer experience socially and whether newcomer status creates a barrier to integration or making friends. About 4 in 10 newcomers say that their newcomer status made integrating into community and making friends more difficult. But much of that 40% fell into somewhat more difficult bucket, leaving only 1 in 10 saying that their status made integration much more difficult. This suggests that it is more of an irritant than a problem. And despite all challenges, 80% of newcomers remain hopeful that Canada will uphold its values of tolerance, democracy, and freedom. This results actually equal to what we see in general population.
Right. So in our first iteration of cracking the newcomer code, we asked if you had to make the decision all over again, would you choose to immigrate to Canada? And 67% said yes. So we re-asked this question this time around, and the result was the exact same. So we're not showing it today because I don't want anyone to think that we didn't do our homework and we just repeated slides from last time. But we built on this sentiment, and we asked newcomers if they plan to stay permanently in Canada, and 3/4 agreed. So that sounds like a great number, but there is room to improve. That means a quarter say that they might not stay in Canada. So as we learned here today, the act of buying groceries is a function of feeling welcome and integrated. So retailers can play a role in this integration. I'll hand it over to Jasmine to summarize our 5 key takeaways for today.
Thank you, Lisa. So lots of good information, but to summarize, here are 5 key takeaways for today. First, financial pressures plague newcomers to Canada. More than half of newcomers are walking the income expense tightrope. Their rent and mortgage payments are increasing, and they have nuanced hurdles to home stability and job markets. Keeping all this in mind, the role retainers can play becomes increasingly important. Second, cultural connections matter for newcomers. 1/4 of newcomers say that the availability of ethnic products from their country of origin is an important factor that when they choose a grocery retailer. Cultural background also plays a role in their purchase decision, and 1/3 of them like to be served by the staff member from their community. Thirdly, 2/5 face challenges finding grocery products that meet their cultural or dietary preferences, like spices or sauces. Similar challenges also exist in personal care and beauty sectors, so there's room for improvement for the retailers. Fourthly, not unlike all Canadians, newcomers have embraced loyalty reward program, with nearly all belonging to at least one loyalty program. Or 3/4 of newcomers actually say that they're likely to switch retailers for better loyalty programs. So this presents a challenge, a risk, but an opportunity for retailers to keep their loyalty programs competitive and attractive. And lastly, 2/3 of newcomers would choose to immigrate to Canada again, a figure that has not changed since spring 2024, and 3/4 plan to stay permanently. So with lowered immigration targets and labor market gaps, Canada must better integrate and retain newcomers, and retailers can play a key role in helping them adapt to this Canadian culture and make them feel positive when they find familiar products. And despite all challenges, most newcomers remain hopeful that Canada will uphold its values.
Thanks, Jasmine. So we couldn't share all of our data in this short webinar. So if the information we did share today is of interest to you and you'd like to learn more, you can purchase our syndicated report to obtain the full analysis with many more questions cut by all key demographics. So if anyone is like me, you've received probably no shortage of Black Friday emails today and all week about sales. So look no further, you can purchase our report today. If you'd like to complete your own custom research, please reach out to any Leger researcher or solutions@leger360.com. Like I mentioned, our Leo panel is profiled on many demographic differences or details, including newcomer status, and we can complete custom research using this amazing resource. Anything is possible. Lastly, if you'd like to reach an even more specific target group, such as newcomers from a particular country, or even newcomers living in a particular city, we have our Leger Digital team with their hard-to-reach solution. This option allows for precision targeting social media campaigns to engage specific newcomer subgroups, or really any other specific subgroup you might be looking for. I've used this approach on several studies recently, and it's really powerful. So with that, we will head to questions, and I've seen some pop through, and I will go through some of them and I'll read them out. So one of the questions asked by an anonymous attendee, does your newcomer group surveyed include only PRs, or does it include international students, temporary foreign workers? Yes, it includes all of the above. To qualify as a newcomer in Canada, for our study, you had to arrive in Canada in the past 10 years. So our sample included those who've been here from 6 to 10 years and also 5 years and under, but it is skewed more heavily to the less than 5 years, which is really interesting data. So I'm looking, so that also answers another question, which was asking about the timeline defining them as newcomers. So yes, you had to be born outside of Canada and in the past 10 years. One of the questions, Jasmine, maybe you can help me out with this. What is the split between newcomers renting versus having a mortgage?
It was more skewed towards renters. I believe 60% are renting, and more than 60% are renting, and about 35% are homeowners.
Thank you. And maybe this one's more for Luke. How do these grocery metrics compare with the Gen Pop? Are they significantly different than what you're typically used to seeing?
Depends on which metric. We had a lot more than we shared today in the full report. I would say that there, in some spots there are some very key differences that we can comment on in a report that we would deliver. But based on the ones we saw today in terms of preferred retailer, I don't see a huge difference. Of course, it's going to be very different regionally as well. Yeah, I can't comment more than that. It's just too much info.
Okay, thanks, Luke. Someone asked about the sample size of our data for British Columbia. I don't have that off the top of my head, but we can reach back out to you after. Is there any other questions? I think here, with that composition in mind, with international students who are likely to return home, skew your numbers around intention to stay or intention to return to country of origin. They are part of our newcomer population, so I'm not sure I would say they skew the results. I think they are an important part of the results, but we can dig in to see, or if you're looking for more information on that, we can get back to you on how those numbers are different. Any other questions? Oh, thank you. So again, I'll just reiterate that for the webinar attendees and anyone who actually registered for the webinar today, you will be receiving a recording of the webinar, as well as our webinar presentation deck later on today. Is there any? Oh, and there was another question. With your findings in the overwhelming influence of social media and their shopping preference, do you list the social media and see if they're using the ones for their cultural groups or the mainstream social media in Canada? So that's actually a good question, and that actually we are releasing our third iteration of our Leger digital study.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew the date, but I bet you somebody will answer it for me from Leger. But that webinar is coming up. We're really excited about it. The Leger digital team, which I mentioned earlier as the team who does the hard to reach subgroups for us. They also do many more things, including this digital report once a year that we love hearing about. And so they really dig into social media and the details of that. So let's look forward to that. Let's see if, all right. And we have another couple of questions from our friend Shanze. Some of the preferred retailers you mentioned were more value driven, like Costco and Walmart. Is there a greater preference for value among newcomers? Luke, what do you think about that?
I would say so. I don't know if it's overwhelming, but I think there is, given that, there's a lot more uncertainty when you're a newcomer and you are looking for, again, biggest bang for your buck. And it's not just that. The other thing that's sort of a general retail trend that I think also applies to newcomers is that people are more and more willing to knock on more doors. So getting, grocery shopping is no longer one store, one cart, right? So there's a lot of I'll get this from here, that from there, and this from there. And that it also ties into the loyalty program and whether that a particular retailer is offering extra points on a specific item, people will make the trip to that for that item.
And is it safe to say that they might do a little bit more of that shopping at multiple stores to get those ethnic products or products from their country of origin?
100%, yeah.
And then another question here, among those who are finding financial hardship in the first 20 months, how much of that financial pressure is from housing costs versus all other costs associated with cost of living? I'm not sure if we have that exact breakdown, but maybe Jasmine, you can comment on that.
Yeah, we don't have the exact breakdown, but I believe that'd be a great big number because in general, also housing contributes about 30% to 40% of our cost of living expenses. So if they are having a hardship with housing, I'd say that's a major chunk of their cost of living pressure.
Not unlike what we're seeing from our economic confidence survey, that's done several times a year as well. Any more questions for today? You can always reach out to us after the fact if you have any further questions. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And as Leisure, we love having the opportunity to engage in this interesting work, and we will continue in the spring with a third iteration. We believe we're going to be tackling the healthcare topic, but we haven't finalized our questions yet. So look to that. But first, look to our digital team and their release of their study coming out soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye all.